Hey everybody, I'm Dan McClellan. I'm a scholar of the Bible and religion. The fit for this video is Metropolitan State University. Go Roadrunners. Let's take a look at a video.
You're making a major mistake by going after the Bible so many times and all these Christian YouTubers and TikTokers instead of actually addressing it with professionals.
Oh, I absolutely continue to address it with professionals. I continue to research and to present and to publish. I just got back last month from a conference at Brown University that I helped organize, where I presented my own research to other professionals on the concept of monotheism in the Bible. And those papers will be peer-reviewed and will be published in a professional academic venue, and I will help edit those papers. The thing is, social media is not a professional academic venue. This is not where the work of the academy goes on. This is where I am sharing what is going on in the academy. This is not where the work itself goes on. If you want to see actual professional engagement, come to the annual meeting of the Society of Biblical Literature the weekend before Thanksgiving this year. It's being held in San Diego. I am the co-chair of a program unit with the Society of Biblical Literature, and I will be presenting research this year at that annual meeting. This is not where I do any of my scholarship. This is where I engage the public on what's actually going on in scholarship.
You're clearly trying to dismantle the epistemology of the Bible so that you can, in order to validate Mormonism.
This has got to be the most nonsensical and the most ludicrous thing you've said in this entire video, because every last one of my videos undermines Mormonism. The overlaps with Mormon ideologies are incidental and only exist on the surface, because once you dig at all into my published peer-reviewed positions on things like God's wife and the corporeality of God and Jesus not being God and things like that, you will see that my positions flatly undermine Mormonism. For instance, when it comes to Jesus being God, I have repeatedly, consistently, for years argued and even published in peer-reviewed venues the argument that the New Testament does not present Jesus as Adonai, as Jehovah. It is official Mormon doctrine that Jesus is presented in the New Testament as Jehovah. So my scholarly position flatly contradicts the position of Mormonism. This is so laughably ignorant and misguided. You're just trying to come up with rhetorical deflections so that you don't have to engage the data. And this is probably the weakest one you have. In your blithe and your naive zeal to advance your identity politics, you have flatly misrepresented the text.
Identity politics. That's really interesting when you have pronouns in your bio and Instagram. So you believe that gender is separate from biological sex, which defies all reason and logic. And I can establish that because when I try and apply the same logic and reason when it applies to race or when it applies to age, you wouldn't accept that. You wouldn't accept me calling myself a 6-year-old. You wouldn't accept me identifying as a black man. And the reason you wouldn't accept that because it disagrees with your values. But I just use your own logic and reason in order to do that. And so you arbitrarily apply when your epistemology and when your reason and logic is applicable. You get to decide, Dan, because you're the moral arbiter of the universe. And you're saying that I'm involved in identity politics?
So this is another piece of sophomoric rhetorical deflection. Because to argue that if we understand gender to be fluid because it's a social construct, therefore race must be fluid because it's a social construct, that presupposes that all social constructs must have the same architecture, the same behavior, the same conceptual foundations. And that's just wildly inaccurate. Social constructs develop in their own ways, and they have to be interrogated on their own terms. And the features that have accreted around the cognitive exemplar of the notion of gender are very, very different, are a lot more fluid and a lot less bounded than the features that have accreted around the cognitive exemplar of the social construct of race. One is a lot more binary than the other, and one is a lot more fluid than the other. And if you'd like more information on how all of this works, I would highly recommend looking into cognitive linguistics. There are a bunch of wonderful intros out there, but I would recommend focusing on things like prototype theory and frame semantics, and Taylor's book, Linguistic Categorization, would be a wonderful place to start.
You know what is unfair? is how you actually don't go out and debate people like professionals. You should go out and debate them. Why don't you go debate like Dan Wallace or, Dr. Bill Mounts? Why don't you do Dr. James White? You seem to be such a fan of him. What about N.T. Wright, Dr. N.T. Wright? He advocates for the same definition for arsena coites as me, as Dr. Mounts. Why don't you argue with them? Why don't you disprove their videos? Why don't you go after them? No, because you're after just the little fish. I challenge you to a debate. I'm only an undergrad student, and I'm more than happy to fly out to you to meet you. I wrote it in your comments. People seem to be a big fan of the idea. Let's debate the issue of homosexuality in the Bible, and let's see.
I engage professionals in professional conferences and in peer-reviewed academic publications. That's where professional engagement goes on. Debates are performative identity politics. I don't really have an interest in them, and as you have demonstrated throughout this entire video, you are incapable of engaging in good faith, and you do not remotely know the material well enough.